The Fitness Business Podcast is happy to have Dr. Paul Bedford with us today. Paul has some exciting news that he wants to share with all of you. Paul, welcome, and we can't wait to hear what you have to announce.
Thanks, Dory. I suppose the thing I want to share with everyone this year is that obviously due to COVID, due to the pandemic, we are going to make the retention convention, which is usually a small event for 150 people. We're going to do it online, and therefore access to that event will be more global than it has been for the last few years. In the early days when we did the event in 2015 and 16, we did stream it live then, and we had nearly 1,000 people from 11 different countries watch. But the cost got expensive and people weren't used to watching online, so we had to back off a little bit. But now, we can't do it live, so we've gone back online. And I'm really excited. December 3rd, we have our sixth retention convention.
Yes, and this is the 6th year of the retention convention. So congratulations on 6 straight years. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think every year I say to the team, this will be the last one. It takes up too much time. It takes up too much energy. And then we get it done and we do the days and we come away and we're really high from it. And we have a bit of a, debrief afterwards. It's like, that's it, it's done. We won't do another one.
Well, I'm glad COVID hasn't ruined the retention convention. So that's a plus. I noticed that you seem to have a special focus this year. Why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about the focus of the convention?
Yeah, each year, but although the retention convention focus is obviously on retention and customer experience, each year we pick a theme. Previous themes have been technology and staff retention and the pure customer experience. But this year we'd always planned to do an event based on developing communities. And I think actually now developing communities and creating communities within your work, your club environment is even more important than perhaps it was at the beginning of the year. We seem to see generally less members coming back than we had before we started. And therefore creating that sense of community, I think is going to be the thing that holds everything together, at least while we decide or we work out what the new norm is, and we start bringing those people who perhaps are more anxious about coming back into the clubs.
Yeah, and I know, listen, in fitness, community's always been important, but I know we've heard it 100 times, but honestly, now more than ever, community is super important in the health clubs and just the health clubs creating that in people's lives.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, even just the club that I go and train at in the morning, we have this little joke of, I train with my best friend. We train 3 mornings a week together. We've created a community of people who smile and say hello to us.
So one of the other things that I noticed besides the focus this year is that in the past, you've had a lot of the Fitness Business Podcast guests as speakers. Chris Stevenson, Bill McBride, Brian O'Rourke, Emma Berry. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who's going to be speaking this year at the conference?
Well, we've definitely got 2 Fitness Business Podcast speakers speaking at the event. So from Australia, we've got Amanda Brax. I've known Amanda for a few years. She's got her own award-winning boutique studio in Australia. She's going to come on and talk about what she does. And what I love about Amanda is she's so direct. She just goes, we do this, we do this, we do this. We stopped doing that. That didn't work. We tried that. It was okay. We're focusing on it. So she's really, really operationally brilliant and really direct. So she's coming on to speak. And then we've also got Marissa Hoff coming in, who's going to talk about building communities using social media, and more of a digital aspect and what you can do as an operator to build that. Because I know a lot of operators really struggle. They've got their social media platforms, but they don't really get engagement from their customers. And so she's going to do a session on how you build engagement and how you create that community on your social media platforms.
We got some serious girl power going on.
But all we try and do, Dory, is when I choose the theme and I see something, I just want to get the best speakers on the topic. And I think the advantage this year of us being digital means we can have such a broad range of speakers from different countries, whereas usually we're a little bit limited budget-wise because we only normally have 150 people, and you can't fly in 3 or 4 international speakers when you've only got a small event. You can usually only do 1 or 2. So this year, there's like, in terms of speakers, no holds barred. The best that I can get on the topic.
Perfect. So we know that you didn't disclose all of the speakers. There's a little mystery, a little bit of a surprise element here. Can you tell us and share with us where the anybody interested in attending, where they can find out more information?
We've got a website. You can come and find a link there. You can look for it on social media. You'll see it on Facebook, LinkedIn, but we'll also provide a link for all the Fitness Business Podcast listeners to just link to. There's no cost. There's no cost to attend. It's free. The way in which we work our events is that the sponsors cover the costs of everything, so that you can attend and you can educate your staff. So you can then share that around your team. You don't have to go, who are we going to pay to go? It's like anybody can go, has got a link. But we'll make sure you've got a link that the listeners can sign up to.
Okay, so free. So that means no discount for the Fitness Business Podcast family.
No, unless I start paying people to come, it's the only next level of what I can do. But, JT's been a speaker at the event in the past, and I know he really enjoyed the event. And when I said I was going to do it, he was like, no, let's see if we can link up and see if we can do something to share the knowledge, because that's what it is. It's an educational event. There's no paid speak. The speakers don't pay to speak. Mm-hmm. We don't have sponsors speaking. It's education all the way.
Perfect. And again, just to reiterate, that is December 3rd.
Yes.
And how long should someone plan to open up their schedule so they can attend?
I would say just over 4 hours. So the way in which the event will happen is we pre-recorded many of the main sessions, partly for safety in case anything goes wrong, and then we'll do Q&As. But we're planning to do 5 main sessions.
Well, super. Some great points there. It's free. I mean, you can't get better than that. The fact that you have a 48-hour window to make sure that, if something comes up or something happens, we know how that is at the clubs, that you're giving them time to get all the information in. And please, everybody out there, take a look. And hopefully on December 3rd, you're not too involved in your holidays yet. And you'll set aside some time to get wiser, get smarter, and learn how to build communities within your club for 2021. Your Fitness Business Podcast Snapshot. Changes to sales and marketing for 2021. What is the marketing message for the upcoming year? And is digital mailing still a valuable marketing tool? All of that and more coming up in today's episode. You're listening to the fitness industry's leading fitness business podcast for owners and managers, where each week we provide an educational platform for our listeners. Our guests come from all around the world to share their expert advice, tips, and knowledge with you, the FBP family. This month's interviews are brought to you by One Fit Stop. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I'm your host, Dory Nugent, and this is episode number 324 from the Fitness Business Podcast. Now, I don't know about you, but I just cannot believe this is our 3rd episode already in our November series, where our guests are guiding and encouraging us to look forward to a prosperous 2021. And who better than to give sales advice for 2021 than Mr. Ireland himself, Alan Leach. But before we hear from Alan, here is a quick message from One Fit Stop.
One Fit Stop is modern fitness studio software built for the growing multi-location studio, providing scheduling, client management, programming, payment collection tools, and more that will set your business up to grow. To find out more, go to onefitstop.com or click on the link in today's show notes.
Business Podcast family, are you ready to hear what great sales advice Alan Leach from the Westwood Clubs has for all of us? Well, I know I am. I have been waiting all week, so let's get started. FBP family, today is a good day. Do you know why? Because we have Mr. Ireland on himself. Mr. Alan Leach, welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast.
And well, I'm delighted, to be honest. The first time I've ever been called Mr. Ireland, I did train for years. I never won the Mr. Ireland, but there you go.
Alan, so why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
I've been involved in the fitness industry. I've been very lucky. I've been involved in the fitness industry 35 years. I was very lucky to end up in it as a fitness instructor like everybody else. Very quickly ended up in sales when people didn't even think sales was necessary. Went back to college, studied marketing for 5 years and stayed in the fitness industry when most people in marketing were moving out of it. So I've been involved in it for like 35 years, selling membership, marketing membership, building clubs, taking over clubs. And I've been doing that for years. I've also been involved with URSA for many years. I'm on the board of URSA. I've been on the board of URSA for 3 years. And I'll be chair of the international committee on URSA. But so I've been involved in every angle of the fitness industry, and I've consulted with many clubs across Europe and the US and Mexico and Brazil and Iceland, from sales training to marketing training to digital marketing consultancy. So that's what I've been doing my whole life, I think.
What I find unique about yourself is that as far deep as you are into the industry and as many years that you have accumulated underneath your belt, you still have your hands in the industry in the day-to-day duties because you are the sales and marketing director for the Westwood Clubs. That's very unique.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Dory, because, you know, many years ago, I remember when I was doing my thesis, the whole idea of culture in a company. And I remember it distinctly that the success of a company is going to come down to its culture. And who determines the culture of the company? It's usually the person with the most power, whether that's the owner, the CEO, or whatever. So, and I also go back to what John McCarthy said one day from URSA. I thought it was a great quote. This is inherently a retail sales business that we're in, and only clubs that have a retail sales culture can succeed in this industry. So in a way, being the CEO and also keeping the reins on the sales and marketing allows you to have that sales and marketing culture right across the company. I mean, even in our company, sales, and we've nearly 500 employees, sales is the only department that skips general managers, skips everybody else, and just reports directly to the CEO. Mm-hmm. So it allows us to build that sales and marketing culture. It's probably a bad thing in my part that I don't let it go, but I don't let it go.
And that's okay. You're allowed to not let it go. You know, today's interview really excites me because before I moved, I was the sales director at a large full service upscale health club for a couple of years. So I understand firsthand about sales, and I feel like I understand firsthand how sales and marketing go together. So I'm very excited to talk to you and dive in a little bit more what sales and marketing looks like for 2021. Does it stay the same? Does it change? Does the wording change? Does the marketing change?
It's a very, very good question, Dory, because I do a lot of interviews, write a lot of articles, and I'm constantly asked the same questions. What's changed? What are you going to do? What marketing are you doing? What sales are you doing? What's working? What's not working? And I know it sounds very boring, but I have to say each time I'm not doing anything different than I did before. You know, we're either closed or we're open with COVID. And when we're open, the exact same marketing tools, the same marketing tactics, the same marketing strategies are working just as well now as they did before. You know, when you're in the industry a long time, you go through recessions, you go through competition, you go through the arrival of the budget clubs, you go through the arrival of everything. And COVID is another challenge. But we are using the exact same marketing tools as we used before. And there isn't any reason for us to change it. I mean, the reasons people go to health clubs, to be fitter, to be slimmer, to be more attractive, to be stronger, haven't changed because of COVID. If anything, more people maybe want to be healthier because of COVID, but the message doesn't have to change. It may change slightly in that you have a slight leaning to making people aware of what you're doing to protect them against COVID and cleanliness and sanitization. But to be honest with you, once we opened up, the demand is still there as it was before, and we just used our marketing tools to exploit that and to capitalize on that. And that's professional selling, professional marketing, professional management. And again, it's a long answer, but I've often said this, Dory, that it won't be COVID that will get you into trouble. It's how you operated before COVID that will get you into trouble. That if you have a strong sales and marketing culture, professional sales and marketing systems, really good staff, good sales management, it got us through everything before, and it will get us through this again. Just as a side note, this evening, Ireland has gone into a full lockdown for a second time for 6 weeks. So all gyms are closing tomorrow again in Ireland for a second time. But when they're closed, they're closed. You don't change your marketing. People can't join. You could do something online. When it's open, we'll be flying again. But I really don't believe anybody has to suddenly change their marketing, because the reasons people have for wanting to go health clubs don't really change that much.
Okay, well, I think there's our whole interview right there.
Yeah. I'd love to say that I have come up with something magical that you can do now, but I'd kind of go, no.
Yeah, but you know what? The great thing is, I think every owner and operator that's listening to this episode just took a giant exhale, and they were like, you know what? Alan says it's going to be okay. We're going to be all right.
Here's another interesting one. And again, on a side note, you hear everybody talking about, the digital landscape and how digital is going to damage bricks and mortar. That is simply not true. If you go online and you check searches for digital offerings, digital fitness offerings, you can see the graph going straight like this. March, boom, huge interest in digital marketing. As soon as the clubs opened up, straight back down, and it's practically identical to what it was before the lockdown. So really, just people need to keep their head above water when they're closed, keep their head above water when they're tough. But we have found the demand for what we offer is bigger than ever once we were open.
Very nice. So even though you just wrapped up, I think our whole episode right there in the first 5 minutes.
Go ahead.
I'm still going to run through a couple of questions.
Go sure, as much as you like.
Awesome. And I'm going to break it down into 3 segments. The first one is going to be marketing. The second one, sales. And then the last one is people. All right. So let me ask you our first question. Will our marketing message will the marketing message stay the same? Such as, is it still going to be no joining? We're hitting 2021. It's January, February, high time for sales. Are we still going to be doing the specials and the reduced joining fees and New Year's specials? Are we still doing that this year?
Okay, I actually read the question beforehand, Dory, and the interesting thing is we have never really done free joining fees, first month free, half month free. Never did it, never believed in it. I never believed there was a need to it. The secret is to have a great product, invest in your product, and then use professional, proven marketing tools to get new members. And we all use them. But we certainly have never dropped our prices. We do, like a lot of people, we have very high joining fees. Like our joining fees in dollars would be $700 entrance fee, $100 a month. Yes, we play around with the joining fee, but there's a lot of scope there. But they're like your January, because the reason that you do want to do these things in January is that's when the market is ready to join your club. And the way we look at it is we just want to get to those people before our competitors do. We do a lot of direct mail, direct marketing, digital marketing. But again, I'm of the opinion it doesn't have to change. Now, let's leave COVID aside. What we have to remember is there's thousands and thousands and thousands of fitness clubs and gyms and boutique clubs out there doing marketing. Loads of them are doing it badly. They need to change anyway. Some are doing it really well. But again, I come back to the things that worked are the things that you should do. It's very simple marketing. You can measure responses. You can measure effectiveness. If your membership is growing and you're getting lots of membership and you're bringing in far more revenue than you spend in marketing, it works for you. So don't look to suddenly change everything. But we were never one of these of very cheap, keep lowering the joining fees. We have a great product, very professional salespeople, and we really look after the customer. But yes, we use incentives at specific times of the year to capitalize on that buying season. What I will say, just to correct something, we never reduce our monthly fees. If you're Microsoft, which is on our driveway, it's European headquarters, if 1,000 people want to join, they all pay the normal monthly fee. But we do play around with the joining fee for offers because we have a huge joining fee that we can do that. But we still get an average about a €200, $300 joining fee. Okay. So we do have specific, because you need an offer when you go out in direct mail, but we never mess around with the monthly fees. But I can tell you, and I will find the book here and I'll share it with you on the screen. And I recommend this to everybody in the fitness industry. And it's this. Can you see it?
It's just a little blurry. Priceless.
Priceless. And I've talked about that several times, okay? But what happens is, Dory, there's loads and loads of books on sales and marketing, but there's been very little research into the concept of price and the impact it has on people's willingness to buy. That was a very good book. It's quite academic, but it talks about the people that actually worry about price are usually the people selling the product rather than the people buying the product. We sell a service, and we found it doesn't matter. And once we don't go outlandish, but you can go up €5, €6 in fee, doesn't affect things. Like here's a little anecdote and a story. My daughter's 23. Because she's my daughter, she has free access to Westwood Club, but she's an artist. She was never into exercise. She could go to Westwood for free. She joined a small personal training studio and is paying €160 a month herself because that's what she wants. And she's not on a huge salary. So it just shows you price is not always the issue that you think it is. And we don't suddenly drop our price and expect to get more memberships. We were actually able to buy out our competitors because in the last recession, they reacted to the recession by lowering the prices. And very quickly, their margins were cut and cut and cut. And it came to the day where they couldn't even pay the rent, and we were able to buy them over. We find we can put our prices up once it's not exorbitant, and we're absolutely fine. And even our current members, when we put up the price, you never lose the number of members that you think you are. Never at all.
That's good to hear. Now, going back to, I want to hit two topics, rewinding for a second. One, your book, Priceless. Alan,
yes.
Can you just tell us who the author of that is?
I'm always terrible at remembering authors. William Poundstone. William Poundstone. With really anybody in sales or marketing or setting up new clubs, read the book Priceless. I know we don't have too much time, but there's some great stories. I mean, just to give you an idea, Dory, I do this regularly when I'm speaking at the URSA Institute and URSA conferences, and I've done this in front of people who are in the industry years, and there's a little trick where you can ask people in an audience, and I've often done this, the average cost of a monthly membership in the UK, is it more or less than £220 sterling? And you get them to write down yes or no. And then you ask them, what do you think the average cost of a monthly membership is in the UK? And you get figures like 240, 250, 190, completely outlandish, when the average cost of a membership in the UK is about 40 sterling. And what's happening is they fall on this anchor of this when I just pick the price out of my head. But it does just show you that pricing is rarely the issue that you think it is when it comes to any product or any service. Yes, if people are looking for the budget end, but I'd say anybody in the premium market, you're fine. It's not going to affect you. It's whether you have a good product, whether you can get people to check out your product, visit your club, and whether you can get them to buy membership or personal training, whatever it is.
The club that I left, we really went by that motto. I mean, we were pretty strict on our price. We stuck to it pretty hard. We didn't negotiate with new members. But what we really worked on was stepping up our customer service so that we could back the reason why we charged what we charged. So that if we were questioned, it was a very simple answer on why we charge what we charge.
And that's the secret. Just stick by it. That's the price you charge. That's the product you deliver. And let's be honest, Dory, most health clubs, if you're going twice a week, even in the most expensive, it's not that expensive. Mm-hmm. You work out in a club with pool and all these facilities for, €100 a month. It's not, people can spend that on a dinner
Yeah, and I often compare it to hobbies. I mean, for many people, fitness is a hobby. I always get asked, you're in a situation to be like, "Hey, what's your hobby?" Well, you know what? I don't do crafts. I don't collect things. So my answer is always fitness. When you think about how much money people spend on other hobbies.
Credit card on it, Amazon,
Yeah. Okay. One more thing I want to rewind to, and that was you talked about you do a lot of direct mailing.
Yes.
Do you feel that the direct mailing is still a viable source of marketing?
When my competition asks me, I tell them no. But for me, absolutely. We have made, and I'm not talking about hundreds of thousands. I'm talking about millions upon millions of euro. You convert that to dollars, millions upon millions of dollars. Never fails. I've been doing it for 13 or 14 years. And the great thing about direct mail, it's easily measurable. We can spend 100 grand on a direct mail campaign and bring in 2.6 million, 3.2 million. Now, I will say this, Dory, direct mail to me, one of the things you have in the US, as far as I know, a lot of people in the US call direct mail just putting stuff in people's letterboxes, okay? Ours is very personalized. We have your name, your address, your telephone number, your email in our database. I'm going specifically to you with a message specifically for you. It's a proper written direct mail piece using direct marketing best practice. But it always works. We would not be doing this if it wasn't hugely profitable. We never lose on it. We'll do this in January. The only reason, and it's going back to your question about how marketing might change in COVID, and this is the only concern I would have, is we do them in January and September. They're hugely successful, but to our databases. We don't buy databases. The only reason I would be cautious, and I'm still thinking about it, in this January is in the middle of COVID, that it might seem a little bit not okay when you're supposed to be managing your numbers as such during COVID and then you're begging for new members. That's the only reservation I might have in COVID. But we do them every year. It has allowed us to get to 35,000 members. Our salespeople love it. Everybody loves them. But it works. It works.
So speaking of COVID and moving forward, this is such a big debate that I heard a lot of the last couple months. I'd love to ask you your opinion on this. When marketing and when trying to sell that membership, how much emphasis is your team putting on safety, cleanliness, anything that hey, we're the cleanest club around? I've heard so many, don't do it, don't do it. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a very good question, Dory. I was asked this recently in an interview. You need to convince people you've the cleanest, most sanitized, most hygiene club. And the best way to do that is to have the cleanest, most sanitized, most hygiene-friendly club. We don't have our salespeople rave about it. The thing is that when somebody comes into our club, they've already made the decision to walk in and check it out. What's an interesting one of this story, when we opened in July after being in lockdown for 3 months, our operations director, and it was all left in her hand, she's very good, looked after the whole COVID thing. And our strategy was to have our clubs attractive so that our own members will want to come back in and new members will want to come in. What I will say to anybody who's still in lockdown and worried, there is a huge demand of people who want to come back into your club. They're desperate to start training again. But before we opened, we were putting up all sorts of screens, getting masks for our sales staff. How do we deal with a family who comes into the office? How do we deal with two people coming in at the same time? How much distance to keep? And you know what it turned out? We were far, far more worried than any of the people inquiring about membership were. I'm looking at sales offices and, customers are walking in with no mask and leaning into the salesperson and signing the forms. And so really the fear that we had never came true. If anything, we're having to remind members, to practice good hygiene and keep your distance. But it certainly hasn't been a huge thing for us at all. But we don't have our salespeople going on about it. We do it on social media. We'll obviously share on social media what we're doing, and we put up guidelines. And a big thing we do, to be honest, which is working really well, is simply thanking the members for supporting us, thanking the members for following guidelines, apologizing for anything that's that awkward but we just had great support from our members. So it really hasn't been an issue at all.
Yeah, you know what? There's so many things with COVID that it's ruined. But one of the things that we used to do at our club, and our members loved it, they appreciated, is we would show appreciation by what better way than food. We used to have all sorts of really cool ideas, and it's a shame because it's like you want to show your appreciation and you want to show your thanks. Food always seems to get right to the heart, and it's like you're nervous about doing that anymore.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
No, we've had just a great response. I mean, I keep an office in the middle of the gym floor. I've always had my office. I don't move them. I'm down there so people come into me. I just like it. I wouldn't like to be hidden away. It sounds like I just want to be there, but just don't like being up there on my own. But constantly members coming in say, you did a great job. You did a great job. But I didn't do that. Our operations director did it, went way over the top. So whatever we were told to do by the government or the health authorities, we did more. So social distancing, screens, sanitization, everything. Plus, Dory, when you're a bigger club, our clubs are fairly big, you have a lot more space.
Yes.
You have a lot more space.
Yeah, the boutiques are definitely taking a hit when it comes to space. And ironically, it's like that's how they built their whole business, about being close together, getting the energy from one another. And now it's absolutely biting them in the butt because it's now about space. And I feel sorry for so many of the boutiques. They're struggling.
It's also hurting, well, in Ireland anyway, I think the UK, the budget clubs, because the budget clubs don't necessarily have the staff to implement those systems and procedures. Like our main budget club has chosen not to open yet.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. I totally agree with that. So let's just shift. I'm going to ask you a question. I feel like I know your answer, but I'm going to ask it anyhow. Maybe we'll get a little nugget out of there. Wow. But with your sales team coming for 2021, what are the differences or similarities that you're going to project to your sales process for the new year?
Here's the thing, Dory, is with one thing about COVID, and I was asked many times in an interview during COVID, what do you do? How are you preparing and everything? And I said, the thing to do is to do all the things that you never got time to do. That'll be fine. You don't need to reinvent anything. You were always giving out. You never had enough time to train your sales staff. You couldn't get enough sales training done. You couldn't build your content for your website. You couldn't get your SEO sorted. Now's the time to do it. So what we really went crazy on when we were closed is sales training, sales training, sales training. We have a sales system that's hugely powerful, that works all the time, that sells 72% of everybody we see. So really, the only thing we have to change is to make sure people are better at it next year than they are this year. But that's kind of the philosophy we've had through the recession and everything else. Have faith in the sales system, have faith in your marketing, and just make sure everybody does it. But there really isn't any need for us to change our sales system. If there was a couple of little things, it's simply this. Some of them are wearing masks now. Actually, a lot of them are wearing masks. Initially, they found that awkward, but they're fine. We do have screens between the salesperson and the prospect, but they got used to that very quickly. But other than that, it's fine, And over 30 years, you've good salespeople, average salespeople, bad salespeople, and you're just trying to make them good all the time. Like our sales process is a 40-minute sales process, 30 to 40-minute sales process. Doesn't change really. It worked. Mm-hmm. So that's the quick answer, but it's true.
That's okay. One of the things that I know you're really diligent on is role playing with your sales staff. You spend a lot of time going through scenarios and scripts with your sales staff. So it sounds like during the slow times, if clubs aren't already implementing that, this would be a perfect time to get their sales staff together and facilitate an exercise like that.
Oh, you see, it's funny, Dory, for years and years and years, our salespeople would not be allowed to tour anybody until they'd gone through 3-day sales training for years. When we bought out competitors, sometimes that didn't always happen because we needed more salespeople. And, when you have a bigger company, you get turnovers a bit more. So we had situations where people may have ended up in sales for a month without sales training. So the thing about COVID was, and the lockdown, it gave us that chance to really rev up our sales team. And all our sales staff, by the way, come back to the training all the time. Even if they've done it 8 times, they'll go back. We do a lot of role play, and it's done in a way that they find it fun. But again, it goes back to this thing about COVID and recessions and competition. We built that culture into our company where our sales managers, by the time they get to be a sales manager, they've been involved in that for 5, 6, 7 years. So, it's very hard for a competitor to try and beat us because sales and marketing, and particularly professional selling, is such a big part of what we do. It gets us through these tough times. There's a quote, you asked me whoever inspired me. I worked for a man years ago. His name is Dave Quinn. He passed away the year before last. And he always had a philosophy in the fitness industry. If you've sales, you can fix anything. Whatever the problems are, whatever the difficulties are, if you have sales coming in the door and you have new business coming in the door, you'll fix your attention. You'll get through the tough times. And I've always lived by that.
So a lot of sales departments are on commission. If the members aren't coming through the door, as many joining, are we changing the way we're paying our sales staff?
Well, what's interesting is we've more coming through the door than we've ever had before. We broke records in July, August, and September. So it's kind of like when people ask me, it says, no, we're getting more sales than we ever did. Now, in all honesty, Dory, that's because you are getting people that would have joined in the months you were closed. So it is a false figure. And I hear people say our sales are up by 80-90%. They should be, because you've maybe past members who cancelled that came back. But what I will tell you is, because I know from speaking in different countries, the salespeople we choose in our sales department all have very strong fitness backgrounds. They've either got sports science, they could be bodybuilders who are hugely into their fitness, leisure management, most of them degrees, and they ended up in the fitness industry with that degree. So most of our salespeople have come from the gym floor. They were working as gym instructors, personal trainers, and they wanted to move more into the commercial side. And they're kind of handpicked. They're picked out of the chorus line and move into sales and make a lot of money. But I've always been believed, if you want to be a good salesperson, you've got to be able to talk about the product. You've got to be able to talk about fitness. You've got to be able to talk about how to lose weight, how to build muscle, how to recover from an injury, how to lower your blood pressure. And even more today than ever, because that information is at the end of people's phone. You're not going to get away making up stuff. So that has worked us really well. But if someone said to me, does the sales staff need to change next year? No, I really don't see, our philosophy has been, when we're closed, keep your head above water, make sure you've got your money in the bank. And I don't think there's a cookie cutter, thing for everybody, because the club who has money in the bank, a very friendly bank manager, very friendly landlord, friendly suppliers who give them a break for 6 or 7 months, is in a completely different position than a club that doesn't have that and probably might not make it to a 3 or 4 month closure. But what I do believe, for any clubs that have a tough time, invest in sales training, and try and really get that knowledge in marketing that other companies outside the fitness industry would have, and try and implement them. But, I really don't see any reason to suddenly change our staffing model. In Ireland, by the way, a lot of them end up in the fitness industry do have primary degrees in fitness or leisure management anyway. It doesn't mean they're any better, but they just do.
Yeah, and I heard somebody say that the destiny of a club was really made before COVID. And that's a perfect quote. That's 100%. As I say, that's it. I often say, people used to panic years ago. The biggest threat to a fitness club is not the economy. It's not the competitors. It's not the arrival of Budget Club. It's not the arrival of technology. And I'll say the same. It's not COVID. The biggest threat to any fitness club is itself. Your competitors do not choose your marketing, your staff training, hire staff, paint your walls. You won't do that yourself. Now, that might lessen the likelihood, the seriousness of this. But I do. That's a great quote. Your destiny is determined long before COVID. Mm-hmm. And if you have the structures in place that made you successful, and they're better than your competition, your management, your customer service, your retention strategies, your design, your club, and your sales and marketing, you'll be fine. So many of the big clubs, the full service clubs, and I know I'll talk here in the United States, have all these members sitting on hold, and they have them sitting on freeze. And this might be the same way there in Ireland.
Yeah.
What are we telling the sales staff? How are we getting those people back in the club? How are we building their trust to get them back in the club? Because to me, they're like easy money.
That was my favorite question, by the way, that you had on the list. Look, I built clubs by being obsessive about database management. Because I saw the value in a database of leads and a database of past members. The most valuable database you'll ever have is your database of past members. We know exactly what we're going to do when we do a campaign today. It is always 1% buying membership, not responding, 1% buying membership. So we've 230,000 leads and past members in our database. So when we get that and we go out and we target them, we're getting between 2,500 and 3,000 members every time in a January and a September. So we use direct marketing, direct mail. Email is not as successful for us because it's getting impossible to get emails in people's inboxes. It really is. Like my favorite, it is so powerful, we don't let anybody in our company use it because it's so powerful. SMS marketing is a dream. SMS marketing going to 230,000 people, you just need to make sure when you send that, if you're saying you have an offer finishing tomorrow, that you've everybody ready to answer the phones, be there, because the response is just huge.
Get your pen ready now for Keep Me's Fit Bizpiration.
What are your 3 tips for sales and marketing?
My 3 tips for any sales and marketing manager, any club owner, anybody that's finding it difficulty, think long term. And number 1, sales training. Really, that'll be your best investment. Number 2, learn everything you possibly can about digital marketing, search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, marketing automation, all of the things that do with digital marketing. Learn it yourself and have it in-house. Okay, so sales training and learn everything you possibly can about digital marketing. And the third one is really, the diamonds in your back garden. Go after those past member databases, your lead databases, and target them through whatever channel you want. SMS marketing, email marketing, or direct mail marketing. It depends on your budget. So they'd be the 3: sales training, really learn about digital marketing so you can be top of the league, and 3, really target those databases that you have in-house and you'll be absolutely fine.
Keep Me, smarter member retention. KeepMe.ai.
And now it's time to get back to the show. Alan Leach, thank you so much for coming on the podcast again. We love having you a part of the Fitness Business Podcast family.
Thank you, Dory. Thank you. It's always a thrill.
Just tell us one more time that book, because I have a feeling a lot of people out there listening are probably writing a lot of notes and they're going to want to hear one more time that book that you recommended.
Okay, I'll even go better. I'll recommend 2 or 3 books, okay? And usually, by the way, I rarely, if I have a great book, I have certain books that I still 10 to 12, 13 years later are pulling out when I've got a marketing campaign. When I'm putting together a marketing campaign, I can have 30 or 40 books open and posted. So, but one for anybody I would recommend to read, because this is backwards, you see, because is Priceless by William Poundstone. Another one for people that find it difficult to write copy, and I've read so many books on copywriting, is Hypnotic Writing. Is an excellent book for people that are afraid to sit down and write a bit of copy for their website or direct mail. Hypnotic Writing. He's written some great books, Joe Vitale. A really, really good book. I have a lot of books from many that are old books, but some of these are like the standards that everybody reads. Some of these were written in the 40s and the 50s. Tested Advertising Methods by John Caples. This is like the advertising awards globally are called the John Caples Awards. Great book. Another one, definitely for managing a service in a health club, The Experience Economy. Everything we do in our clubs, from retention to programming to onboarding to staff training, most of it's based on that book. It's the same book Disney used, by the way. So I've given you 4. You're getting good value there.
And we will make sure we get those books in our notes so that people can just go on and click and get right to the book.
There's one other.
Yeah, go ahead.
And again, people talk about the salesperson was going to disappear. It's a myth. It's a nonsense. The salesperson has not disappeared. Salesforce and HubSpot and Oracle will tell you the salesperson is going to disappear. Then when you walk into the offices of Salesforce and HubSpot and Oracle, you just see these huge floors packed with salespeople. But the art of the sale by Philip Delfbaro. I can never pronounce his name. Great book. It talks about salespeople are not going to disappear. He studied salespeople in every country. He was a famous journalist who went to Harvard. And when he went to Harvard, what he was shocked with was he'd got a degree. He'd been a journalist for a year. He went to Harvard, did his MBA, and he was shocked. And in all those years, nobody told anybody how to sell anything. Harvard hasn't done so well since. But anyway, there you go. No more books.
So I think some great advice would be if the sales team has a little bit of downtime, start a book club.
Yes, great idea. That's an excellent idea.
First, can I just say how honored I am to have had this opportunity to interview Alan? Alan always delivers, and he certainly didn't disappoint today. Didn't you just love how Alan's sense of calm and reinforcement that if we just stay the course and continue to steer the ship, everything is going to be all right? I love that. Well, Alan, thank you so much for your advice and, more importantly, for sharing your time with our FBP family. Now, here is a message from our podcast partner, MyZone.
MyZone is the industry's leading wearable technology platform that drives engagement and provides personal feedback and motivation through gamification, wherever your members choose to work out. Go digital to provide a hybrid offering. Your members will love you for it. Learn more at myzone.org.
Quickfire 5.
November has been like the star-studded lineup. Well, we've got one more star to add to November's episodes. The one, the only, Emma Barry is going to be next week's guest. Now, let's hear how she answered the Quickfire 5 questions. Your Quickfire 5 questions are brought to you by next week's guest, Emma Barry. Emma, great to have you on the show with us.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Okay, you ready for your Quickfire 5 questions?
I am. Let's go.
Number 1, who inspires you in life and why?
Shapeshifters, not all of them are still with us, but people like Bowie, Prince, Madonna, Gaga, Elon Musk, and Leonardo da Vinci.
Excellent. Love them. Awesome answer there. And Emma, why do you do what you do?
Because I failed at getting into law school, so it was much easier to get into phys ed school.
I appreciate that you admit that. Very nice. And if you weren't doing what you were doing, what would you be doing?
I would like to be an architect for cool spaces around the globe, and I'd also be blogging on the joys of travel at the same time.
Oh, awesome. Well, maybe someday. Yeah. And then how about a book, a podcast, a blog, or a Facebook group that you would recommend to our listeners and tell them why?
Sure. So I love Chris Voss, so Never Split the Difference. It's an audio book and it'll be a book. FBI Negotiator, so just really sharp questioning and applying NLP and all that good stuff. And then for fun, anything I'm a badass, Jen Sincero.
Perfect. And what will be an action item that our listeners will take away from your main interview next week?
Look, that's an easy one. And because I work through a lot of clients with this as well, is do my masterclass, Building a Badass Boutique, irrelevant what business you're in. It's really, really helping people go profitable.
All right. Well, we look forward to your interview next week. Emma, thanks so much. And we'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Fitness Business Podcast family, Sarah Pellegrino here, your host of The Value Proposition. The Value Proposition goes live the third Friday of each month and highlights a supplier in the industry and the value they bring to the fitness industry above and beyond their product or service. Tune in on Friday, November 20th for this month's episode, The Value Proposition for Making Fitness Accessible with Trainerize. If you're an independent trainer, training studio, or health club, this episode is for you. Learn how the Trainerize app came to be and hear from the product director, all the features that it has to offer. Their VP of Client Success will walk us through the customer service side of their business, let you know why they'd be a great partner for you. You'll also hear from their marketing director to explain to us what exactly they mean in their mission when they say they want to make fitness accessible. All this and more on episode 325 of the Fitness Business Podcast. to hear the value proposition for making fitness accessible. See you there.
Hi everyone, Chantal here. Thank you for joining me for this week's throwback episode when we take a little trip down memory lane as I share some of my all-time favorite episodes from the first 5 years of the show. This week's featured show is a recent one. It is episode 301 and it was called Creating a Hybrid Physical and Digital Experience for Your Members. And it featured none other than our podcast partner from One Fit Stop, Jaron Azen. During the interview, we spoke about ways that operators can implement digital transformation in their business, how much time, money, and expertise is needed to make an impact, and how to combine a physical and digital experience to make it truly meaningful for members. If you haven't yet heard that episode, then take a listen today simply by clicking on the link in today's show notes or go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and search for episode number 301. Happy listening.
And that is a wrap. Thank you for joining me for this week's show, and a reminder that all the resources and links for today's episode can be found at fbp.com. And a warm thank you to our founding partner, Active Management.
Hi FBP family, it's JT from Active Management, the founding partner of the Fitness Business Podcast. Thanks to the amazing technology at our fingertips, we can now work with clients all over the world. But right now, you can join the free online Active Management Facebook community. It's an amazing group of people just like you. Sure, I share weekly resources, but it's the power of the community that you will experience that will make this your go-to Facebook group. Remember, it's free, fun, and inspirational. Go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community.
What you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.